set out on a boat. It was 22 feet long.
You know, I'm pretty blue collar in my drink choices. You know, probably Miller High Life and Maker's Mark. But beyond that, you know, since I started working on this project, I've gotten to learn a little bit more about Italian wine in an effort to, you know, to better myself and you know, try to push Lincoln forward.
Shapes and American eyes.
I started working in restaurants when I was 15. Before I got my driver's license, I remember my mom used to have to take me to work. It was a little restaurant called the Oxford House in Oxford, Connecticut. And one of my classmates at school, his brother and his wife owned the restaurant. And he worked there part-time. He got me a job working there part-time. And I believe to this day, it's still the same owners. I was washing dishes, I was peeling potatoes. I worked at a couple of other restaurants in Connecticut when I was in high school. And then when I got out of high school, I moved right out to Hawaii and started working in restaurants out there. I worked at the Hard Rock Cafe for a while. I worked at a fine dining restaurant called the Black Orchid. And then I worked on cruise ships for a little while, the Constitution and the Independent. When I lived in Hawaii, I realized that I wanted to do this as a profession. And so I moved back home to Connecticut and went to the CIA. And then I worked at the Mayflower Inn in Washington, Connecticut for a guy named John Farnsworth, who was really the first guy that kind of showed me what was possible. He is to this day an incredible chef and has been a great mentor and teacher. And when I finished school, you know, he was like, listen, you grew up in Connecticut, you got to get out of here, you got to go see what's out there. And so I moved out to San Francisco and I started working at Aqua with Michael Mina, which was really, it's probably 20 years ago. And at that time, Aqua was like the hottest restaurant. And I worked there for about a year and a half. And there was a guy named Mark LaRusso, who was a sous chef there, who had worked with Thomas Keller at Checkers in Los Angeles. And he said, listen, you know, you're coming to the end of your time here. The chef that I worked for in Los Angeles is opening a restaurant up in the Napa Valley called the French Laundry, and I think you should really go up there and work for him. You know, I think you really connect with him and learn a lot. And I went up there and trailed. A few months later, the chef had a position for me. I went up there as a commis, you know, prep cook, and then started as the fish cook. And I worked there for about a year, and then I got antsy. You know, I kind of got bored in the Napa Valley. And I'd always wanted to live and work in New York. And the chef got me a job at Danielle. And so I started working at Danielle. After that, I worked at Les Celebrités in the Essex House Hotel. I went to work at Gramercy Tavern with Tom Colicchio. I was lucky enough to work a year in the pastry with Claudia Fleming, and then the opportunity came up to open Craft with Marco Canora and Tom Colicchio. I was there for about a year as a sous chef. I heard that the chef was going to open a restaurant in the Time Warner Center in New York. I called him up. I said, you know, I'd really love to work with you again. We talked for about 6 months. I went back to the French Laundry to work for almost another 2 years to kind of get ready for the opening of Per Se. That's where I met Corey. And then we all moved back to New York to open Per Se. Per Se was an incredible experience. I was there for about 6 years. And then you know, I started feeling like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to try to, you know, brand myself as my own chef. You know, not Thomas Keller's chef de cuisine, but you know, Jonathan Benno, the chef of a restaurant. I tried for a long time to raise money to open my own restaurant. I wasn't successful. And then the opportunity came, you know, that opportunity came up to work with, you know, Nick Valenti on this project. And now here we are. I'm gonna bust your heart wide open, yeah. very proud of the time that I spent at the French Laundry in Per Se, and I'm very proud of, you know, what the team has done there since I left. You know, is Per Se the best restaurant in New York City? It's one of the best. You know, that's kind of subjective, isn't it? You know, what is the best restaurant? You know, 11 Madison, incredible restaurant. Danielle, Le Bernardin, Jean-Georges. I mean, those are all the top of the mountain. I think that the experience at Per Se is unique, not better than, but unique in its own way. You know, I was lucky enough. I had dinner there in December with my wife. Both my wife and I celebrated our birthdays there. And believe it or not, that was the first time that I'd ever eaten. I never ate there when I worked there. It was like this quirky little thing. I never wanted to eat there. And it was the best, probably one of the best meals, you know, that I've ever had in my life. And perhaps, you know, maybe the best dining experience, the best fine dining experience I've ever had in my life. It was truly remarkable. And so, you know, for me, it's the best restaurant in New York City. You know, maybe the best restaurant in the world. I don't know. I mean, I haven't been to all the restaurants in the world yet. For me, it's the top.
Cause it's the real world, and the real world starts at coupons and permission to go.
When you're here, when you're in this kitchen, you know, I want you to have integrity as a person, and I want you to show respect for your co-workers, for the physical, you know, the physical restaurant. And most importantly, respect for the food. Very few things that are more intimate than cooking food for someone. And, you know, aside from the, you know, the wholesomeness of the food, you know, sanitary concerns and things like that, I mean, that's critical. But also respect, you know, respect for, you know, where the food comes from. And, you know, the striped bass, the carrot, the potato, you know, the striped bass and the carrot don't come from the walk-in. You know what I mean? Somebody had to, you know, catch the striped bass, bring it in from the sea. It goes to our purveyor, and from our purveyor it comes to us, and then we have to fillet it and portion it. You know, that process is, you know, is significant. You know, all to get, you know, 150-gram portion of striped bass that we're going to cook and serve to our guest. So, you know, what do we do with the trim? What do we do with the bones? You know, all of those things are important to business. We have to respect the business. You know, paramount is respect for the guest, and respect for one another, and then respect for the business. You know, I remember before my wife and I had kids, always our days off were always, you know, just that. We always had a list of. We still have a list. Now it's a long list that we don't check many things off of anymore. But we would always, you know, we would always have our list for our days off of places that we want to go check out. We lived over in Chelsea for many, many years, so I really liked the Murray's Bagels. For lunch, Pearl Oyster Bar, or Aipudo, or Momofuku. For lunch, for dinner, some of our favorites. We have a few favorites in Koreatown, Chinatown, like New York Noodle Town, or Joe Shanghai. Over in Brooklyn, Aldi La, Franny's, you know, all the usual suspects. Crispo is a real favorite of ours. Lupa, Hearth. My wife and my 2 daughters inspire me. I think the staff, you know, the kitchen staff here inspires me. You know, they, you know, I wanna learn more, and I know they want to learn more as well. You know, it wasn't that long ago that I was, you know, that I was a cook, and I wanted to move stations, and I wanted to do specials, and I wanted to see new things. You know, I still feel the same way today as a chef. That, you know, I still want still want to learn new things. I still want to try new dishes. I still want to, you know, develop the cuisine here. I still want to develop myself as a chef. You know, I want to push myself to do better. I want to make Lincoln better.
Been counting your days, tits never last. Oh, how you kick my